Oh my goodness. I ate a lot of food yesterday. Sure did. Feel pretty bad, actually. Whew, I overdid it a little bit. So today is a recovery, detox, a lot of fluids today, kind of flush some things out of the system, but did buy some stuff online, did go out and do some shopping. We'll talk about some of the Black Friday deals and whatnots happening out there. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about some comics, some stuff something I picked up this week, and some of the stuff I've been picking up recently. We'll have a conversation about some of the older stuff that I'm enjoying a lot more than the newer stuff. But let's see. Let's get started here. There's been a lot of stuff, of course, because it's Black Friday. Bound to happen, right? So let's see. What are some of the things? Starlink. If those of you who have not purchased the game, it's along the lines of Skylanders or Disney Infinity type of thing, where you've got these ships and crew members and weapons, whatever, and you know they interact with the game somehow. You set them on your Switch or you set them on whatever little thing, and it makes the character in the game turn into that, and you play and whatever. If you like buying those little ships, now's a great time to buy them because a lot of them are on sale, $4.99, $5.99. They're clearanced all over the place. The game itself, if you haven't bought it, we bought the Switch version online for $12. We had the Xbox One version. We've never opened it. But it's just one of those things. But the Switch version, of course, has exclusive Star Fox stuff, so we went ahead and bought that version. And, of course, because it comes with the Star Fox stuff, it's different than the stuff that came in the Xbox One pack, so we've got different ships now. We got different stuff. So if you ever wanted to get into it, now's the time. Go online. You can find all kinds of stuff super cheap having to do with that game right now, and it can't be beat. Another thing, my Xbox One... one of the things that we use a lot is the Kinect. We don't use it for gaming, but what we do is we have it plugged in, and we use the voice commands all the time. It's set up to work with our TV, so we walk in, we tell the Xbox to turn on, it turns itself on, it turns on the TV, it automatically goes to what it calls the One Guide, which in our case is hooked up to the Roku. So you can go through, but if you've got like Sling TV, you can plug it in for that. If you've got an over-the-air tuner, like an antenna tuner, I think maybe a Tableau will work with it as well. You can plug that in to have it go right to your TV. You can also tell it to go to YouTube or go to YouTube TV or to go to whatever app. And it works, I think it's actually Cortana built in, like from Windows 10. Well, we use Kinect all the time for that thing, and they stopped making the Kinect units themselves. GameStop has them on clearance for $15. So I went ahead and grabbed one. Now, one of the things with it is it has a proprietary plug, and the Xbox One S does not have that, and of course your Windows computer does not have that, but they sell adapters online all over the place. You go on Amazon, they're like $20. You can go, I think like AliExpress, you can find them for like $10. And basically it just will allow you to plug it in if you want to use it on your computer as a webcam. It also has the microphone and everything, so you can record that way, do all that kind of stuff, interacting. Regardless, though, I wanted to have a backup because our Xbox One really is our entertainment hub. So many things are plugged in to it. The Roku that's the default through the HDMI is actually on a switcher, so we can switch to other things. But it really is so great to be able to use it. Plus, Alexa also works through it. So stop listening because we have those echoes all over the house. So anyway, so $15. I think it was free. Is it free shipping if you're a pro member? Something like that. Anyway, so did go ahead and order that. Amazon had movies on sale. Tons and tons of movies. Well, not tons and tons, but enough. Detective Pikachu, $7.99. That's the Blu-ray DVD digital copy combo pack. My son has won it. He saw it in the theaters. He loved it. He's like, oh, everybody in the family needs to see it. Well, it's not happening, but at that price, that's $8. Throw it in a stocking because he wants to watch it again. He does want a copy of it. Skyfall was $3.99. Lego Movie 2 Blu-ray, that was $4. Blade Runner 2049 for $5.99. It's just cheap prices for these movies, and I know a lot of people go digital. A lot of you guys are probably ripping them, downloading them, whatever, but I like to buy them if I can. Also, the Primal Age Aquaman figure popped up for $6.60, so I threw that on there because I love those figures, and throw another one on. Oh, Venom on Blu-ray for $6. So go to Amazon, look around. They've got movies cheap right now, and just load up on them. And of course, Prime shipping, so it's free shipping, so super cheap. That's a pretty good deal. You can't really beat. What else? I ordered. Oh, GameStop also had the micro arcade machines. Normally $30 or $35. I think is it the My Arcade? They're two different brands, right? So you've got the brand that's sold in Walmart for like $20. Usually color screen, they're okay. There's like the ones that they're like $15 or $13 that have the LCD screens that look like the old school games from the 80s when you're trying to buy those. Those are pretty cheap, but these are the more expensive ones. They usually have like Burger Time and Bad Dudes and Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man, of course, Donkey Kong, some of those classic games. Caveman Ninja is a game that I barely even remember, but it showed up. It was $15.97. I love these little machines. I actually have an arcade machine downstairs, and I actually took my little arcade things and made them on top. So there's an arcade on my arcade. And the nice things about these micro players is they have a USB power option. So I actually have a USB split hub, but they have little switches so you can turn them on and off individually. I don't know if that's really important, but plugged them in. So now I can go downstairs, flip on the switches, flip on my arcade machine, and they all light up. All of these micro players, they all light up, so you've got this arcade on your arcade, and it's nice. And sometimes I go on and I'll just start them up, put a credit. It doesn't last very long, but you get that ambiance, that arcade sound. You have all these other arcade noises while you're playing on your arcade. That's, to me, pretty cool. So I went ahead and got that as well. Let's see, what else did we get? Okay, so some of the things around here. If you did not buy the PlayStation Classic when it came out, or you're wanting another one because they're so easily modded, and you might want to throw it on another TV, you put one on your TV downstairs, one on your TV upstairs because they're so easy to mod, then these were $29 at GameStop, $25 at Dollar General. I'm sorry, Dollar General has them for $25. You can find them all over the place nowadays. I think Best Buy may have also put them on at $29. At this price, they're worth it. When they were $100, it was a hard sell, right? Because you didn't get a whole lot of games, and it came with just the basic controller, and it was like, really? Yeah, it was a tough thing. $30, definitely buy it. 25, of course, because that's even cheaper. Definitely buy it. So this is one of those things. Now, if you're thinking, I've heard you can mod them, but I don't really know how to do it, and it's kind of tricky because you have to have a thumbstick that is compatible, and they aren't always, and sometimes it's hard to figure out the format of the files to throw them in there, and you're having a hard time. Let me just tell you this. I actually did get a second one of these, so I can have one upstairs and downstairs, but I did find on Wish, I ordered these a while ago. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a video on them or not, but these are called the True Blue Mini, and they have 4 of these for sale. And I got the Fight Pack and the Crackhead Pack, because they're loaded with games. This one is 64 megabytes with 101 games, or 64 gigabytes. Sorry, megabytes. 64 gigabytes with 101 games. This is 32 gigabytes with 58 games, and they also come with a USB hub. So what you can do is, if you've got 2 controllers, you want to do a 2-player game, you plug this into the spot for controller 1, and you plug the thumb drive into it. And then your controller into it, if you want to do that. Or if you're not going to play any 2-player games, you just have the one controller, you just plug it into the USB port for number 2. You hit the power, and it just automatically boots into the thumb drive, and you can play these extra games. These, it's on Wish, right? So sometimes you might see them for $30. Sometimes you might see them for $19. Sometimes you might see them for $16. I think when I bought these, they were like $9, or maybe it was, I think it was $9 and $11 to buy them. And to get the thumb drive, to get another hub, which is totally useful to have more USB hubs, especially if you're charging more stuff and having more stuff plugged in, whatever. More and more stuff is being powered by USB nowadays. But you can do that. That's a super cool thing to do. And then plus it's got the games on it. And then it also, you've got the structure, you've got the files on there. That makes it easier if there's another game you want to throw on. Like Rage Racer. I love Rage Racer. It's a game nobody remembers. But it was from the Ridge Racer people. It was a different game. But anyway, I love that game. It makes it super easy to see how everything's structured and throw it in there, grab the files, throw it in there, have the game to add on. So the PlayStation Classic is worth it, obviously, at this price. Super cheap. And then getting some of these thumb drives off of Wish and throw them up there, it's fine. I understand these are not even 1% legal, but use at your own risk. Okay. What else? Oh, we physically went to GameStop. All the other stuff that I said from GameStop, we ordered online. We physically went to GameStop. They had a deal where the Overwatch Ultimate figures that are normally like $22.99 were $12. And then if you bought the figure, you got one of the $20 masks for free. So my son, he wanted I think it's the Reaper. I don't play Overwatch, to be honest with you. But it's the Reaper, but he doesn't have the mask on. It's him unmasked. So that Ultimate figure was $12, and then you got the $20 mask for free. So we just grabbed one of these. And it's actually pretty nice. I was kind of surprised. There's a whole head covering on there, and you've got the eye covering, eye holes, visor, that's the term. Comes down, so, I am I going to walk around town in this thing? Probably not, but, it's a neat little toy for them to play with, for the kids to play with. But I figured throwing this on for free, the figure and the mask, for the $12, whatever, definitely made it worth it. And, of course, got this great hat at Dollar General for $7. So there are deals out there. There are deals to be had. And right now, if you're into digital games, if you don't care about having physical copies necessarily on everything, all the stores, PlayStation Store, Xbox One Store, Switch, if you go online to someplace like cdkeys.com, lots of games, super cheap. Now, a lot of them are games that were free with the Game Pass or the PlayStation Plus free downloads. So if you missed something and you really wish you had it and you don't want to pay the $29.99, the $19.99, whatever they're still asking for it, a lot of those are on sale super cheap through places like CD Keys for like $1.65, something ridiculous like that. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you're looking for anything like that, that's a great thing to pick up. That's really about... I mean, I bought some gifts for other people, but for, just the neat, geeky, random stuff. Geekfuel is selling some of their boxes for $19. And the one nice thing, though, is if you go online, they will show you what's in the box. So you can order the box and you see all the things that are in it. That's one of the things I never liked about any of those subscription box things. And I know... Loot Crate is having a really hard time right now. They got bought out by another company. They were facing bankruptcy. They owed a lot of money to different companies and whatever. Now they're crowdsourcing or crowdfunding a lot of their boxes. That's the one thing I never liked, is not knowing exactly what you're getting, because a lot of the stuff I wouldn't pay for $20. But Geekfuel, you can look at their boxes. They will tell you every item that's in the box, and you can decide whether or not you want to order them. And there's some, like, I'm wavering because there's one that has the Masters of the Universe Keshi figures, the muscle figures, basically. They have an exclusive pack of those, and I kind of, but that's really the only thing I want out of the bundle. So going back and forth and trying to decide whether or not I want to bite the bullet on that one. But yeah, so there's some good stuff out there, but it's not like it was. It's not like it was before. And one of the big things I remember Black Friday, there were two big places that we would always go. Either myself and my son, or myself and friends of mine. And the first one was actually Staples. And I know that sounds crazy. Staples. Yeah, Staples. We don't have one here in town anymore, and there's been so much consolidation and whatever. I looked at the stuff for Office Depot and Office Max, but the technology that they have is not the same as it once was. It used to be on a Black Friday, you could get something like a huge external hard drive for $100 that had massive space on it. Well, nowadays, huge hard drives don't sell as well as they used to, so they just don't hit those sales. I guess people just don't need hard drives anymore. A lot of people aren't doing connected storage and Plex servers and all that kind of stuff, so they don't have those same deals. You might be able to find, for instance, I'm going to use today's terms just so it makes sense, because if I tell you, you could get a 32 megabyte thumb drive, you're going to be like, 32 megabyte, who cares? But for instance, let's put this in perspective for today. If you wanted, say, a 512 gigabyte thumb drive, today it would cost you over $100. For Black Friday, they'd have them for like 60, right? That was the type of deal that you used to have on technology. I remember buying my wife a laptop on Black Friday, because the laptop, it was normally like $150, but they had it for $89.99, and she likes the smaller, the flash memory hard drives. They're like Chromebooks, but Windows 10, the HP Stream, the Dell, whatever their small ones are. She likes them small. She can throw them in her bag, take it to work, pull it out if she needs to work on it at work, but it can run Word, and it does Pandora. It does the stuff that she needs, and they're cheap and don't take up a lot of space, don't take a lot of power. You get good battery life on them. She loves those types of things. Those things just don't go on super clearance anymore. None of those technology things, because I think those types of computers, computer accessories, those things are so cheap now because it's such a competitive market, because sales have been down as more and more people transition to doing everything on their phones, that those things are so cheap most of the time that it's hard to get them at a sale price, because there's not much of a margin on them. It's really something that would have to be a loss leader, try to get people in the door to sell them other stuff. I did drive past Best Buy last night, and it was pretty packed. And there were people buying TVs and sound bars and things like that, and you could see them hauling them out, and cars lined up trying to get in so that people can load them in and drive off. So that was kind of a nightmare as far as traffic goes. Walmart wasn't really all that busy. But it was busy enough. I didn't want to go in there because there's nothing I really wanted that, it's worth waiting in line for. But surprisingly, the places that were packed were Kohl's, where all the ladies getting their clothes, I guess, because I don't know what else you buy at Kohl's. And then the Carter's store, which is baby clothes and baby stuff. Oshkosh bagosh overalls for your 6-month-old. Those places were packed and people going crazy in there. So I guess we're just in one of those weird phases now for Black Friday and the technology and things like that. Games, digital, they can drop the price down because it doesn't really matter. Comixology, I did buy some stuff off Comixology. Both DC and Marvel are doing buy one, get one sales, but it has to be older stuff. It can't, of course, be the newer stuff from the past 2 months, I think it is. But if you are thinking, if you go, oh, well, that's great, I'll buy a bunch of digital stuff to throw into my library and I can read whatever. And if you've got Comixology Unlimited, then you get the lower price. So instead of it being $3.99, it's $3.19, and then it's buy one, get one free. If you're thinking about that and doing that, one thing to keep in mind is you have to do 2 separate transactions because you can only use one code at a time. So you have to go in, grab your Marvel stuff, go to checkout, put in your code for Marvel, and then check out, and then go back, grab your DC stuff, go to checkout, put in your code for DC, and get your deal that way. So I did buy a bunch of stuff that way, but I was thinking about it. Some of the stuff I was buying was just stuff to kind of catch up on. Like I gave up buying on the print copies on some of the stuff, but I figured the digital, I'll go back and maybe catch up reading some of that stuff. But this week, I normally don't buy back issue magazine, first of all, because it's a cover price of $10, which is just kind of ridiculous. And I get it; it's a slick, full color magazine. It's a fairly nice quality magazine as a keepsake type of deal, not like the old Comics Buyer's Guide that were newspapers you were going to throw away. It is pretty nice, but this issue is about superhero stand-ins. This is, as you can see, Beta Ray Bill. So it talks about John Stewart, Green Lantern, James Rhodes, Iron Man, U.S. Agent, Azrael, the Hollywood Superman. That's I believe a Silver Age character, and it just goes in. It talks about the different characters. It shows some of the artwork when they were trying to design them and figure it out. They have interviews with a lot of the creators who came up with some of these ideas for the stand-ins. I loved U.S. Agent. Super Patriot, obviously was a little misguided. I love the black suit on Captain America that the Cap actually wore for a while, and then now became the U.S. Agent suit. I love that black suit. That to me was just always the coolest when I was growing up. Love that. So, interviews with like Joe Quesada and Denny O'Neil talking about how they came up with Azrael and Breaking of the Bat and doing all that kind of stuff. So really neat, interesting. And this is one of the things I kind of like reading about comics more than a lot of the comics that are coming out today. Just because, and one of the things here about these stand-ins is, the characters were often brought in to do something interesting and do something different. They weren't part of a directive that they had to change things for the sake of changing things. It wasn't about. I won't get into it. But the idea, these were story-driven to do interesting things with characters. And that's what makes those characters much more worthwhile than some of the things that we've seen over the past few years. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about were some of the pickups that I've been making at my local comic shops. And I say shops, plural. We have 3 in town. One that I even used to work at. Well, actually, technically 2 that I used to work at. And then the third one, the guy tagged me on Facebook as an employee, which I don't know if he meant to do that or not, but whatever. But I go to all 3 stores all the time, and I pick up stuff. And what I've gotten into the last few months is a lot of older stuff. And when I say older stuff, Marvel in the 40s. Superman in the 40s. The Batman Chronicles 1 and 2, which is, these are neat because it's through Batman Detective, whatever books that he appears in, they put them in chronological order. So you're reading, and it may jump back and forth between Batman and Detective going through so that you can read the stories in the order that they were coming out way back when. Silver Age Flash 1 and 2. These are great. I love reading this stuff. And then even Golden Age Wonder Woman. Pick this up. Great old stuff. And then the All-Star Comics, this hardcover just came out recently. The Justice Society that appeared in the 40s, of course, disappeared. Justice League came in the 60s, kind of took over. And then at some point they started to do this crossover. They realized that the characters from the 40s existed in another parallel universe, and they started going back and forth and visiting. And then in the 70s, they decided to bring the Justice Society back in the All-Star Comics. And then eventually it became a Justice Society thing. But this collects basically all of those stories from the 70s from that run. So you get, for instance, there's Power Girl, as she was. You can see there's Superman with the gray hair. That's the old version of him from the 40s, basically having aged over time. But a lot of these books, my son was asking me, why do you like them so much? Because they don't really, fit with the current continuity or anything, and the stories are told in a completely different way. But one of the things is, when you look at some of these pages, look at how much is going on a page. when you're reading through these stories, look at how much text there is, the dialogue, the narration, all of that stuff going on to tell you a story. To me, I hate buying a modern comic book and it takes you basically a commercial break of a TV show to read the entire book. 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes. If you're watching something on like History Channel or Discovery, it's like 5 minutes for a commercial break. It drives me nuts that the prices keep going up because, hey, we're using better paper and it's a higher quality cover and we're using the computerized coloring and whatever. Sure, it's a nicer looking package, but you're paying $4, $5 for a content that takes you 3 minutes to read. To me, it's such a horrible value, and I've pulled back so much on the amount of stuff I buy. I buy so few paper comics anymore, and I do buy some stuff digitally, Comixology every week. Excuse me. There's a little bit of a discount there, and also it's not taking up space because a couple of years ago I did sell off a whole bunch of back issues just to clear up space and just get stuff out of here because they do pile up. And so many, I realized as I was going through them, so many of the new stuff I just don't ever go back and reread. And they don't have a lot of resale value, modern comics. You can get like a key issue here, key issue there, and it's great, but the random comic that you buy, you come back to it in 2 years and it's, whatever random issue. It used to be like the rule of thumb was 75-cent comic becomes $1 as soon as it's a back issue, right? It automatically goes up in value. When comics were $1.25, it becomes $1.50 as a back issue. It was just kind of like the random rule that people would go by. When you had, of course, a special book, it might be $11, $20, whatever. But nowadays, the books that you have, if it's a year old of just whatever random series, they're worth $1. You paid $3.99, $4.99 for it. It's worth $1. You go to a lot of stores and you're flipping through their back issues, and a lot of their stuff they're just blowing out at $1 because they just have so many of them. Because books sell so terribly nowadays, people don't buy them. Price is too high. There's not enough to them. And when you think, $3, $4, $5 for the amount of entertainment you get, the movies that I was buying, even if I only watch Blade Runner 2049 one time and never watch it again, I'm going to get 2 hours of entertainment out of the $5 to buy the movie, as opposed to spending $5 on a comic and get 4 minutes of entertainment out of it. There's a real disconnect between the value of what you get for the amount that you pay. And I know comics piracy has been a real big issue in the comic sphere for the past few days. It kicked off really hard a couple days ago, and it's been kind of rolling along, and creators are coming in and talking about stuff, and people who justify their piracy are on there. And look, I'm not, like, I don't have a dog in the fight because I don't own a store. I know people who own stores. I know creators, writers. There are a lot of people who work in the industry that I still talk to fairly regularly. There are people I support through Indiegogo and Kickstarter and things like that. But the big problem is that modern comics have been built on this idea that there's so much of an emphasis put on, one, the artwork. So one, full page splashes, 2-page splashes, or 3/4 of a page is one big active panel. It looks cool, great, but you're getting like no story out of it. That's been one issue. Another issue is that so many writers write for the trade. And what do I mean by trade? When you go out and buy a comic book, and you buy one issue, that's an issue. That's a floppy. A lot of people will refer to it as a floppy, a single issue. When they collect 6 issues together into a storyline, that is a trade paperback, is what it's called. They're collected. It used to be, back in the old days, they would take the unsold copies and they would re-glue them together as a collection. Well, nowadays they get printed separately. as a book. But a trade, a graphic novel is going to be original. It's an original story being put together as a book, as a graphic novel. So when you see something like The Dark Knight Returns, the Frank Miller classic story, and people go, oh, buy that graphic novel. Or Watchmen, grab the Watchmen graphic novel. It's not a graphic novel. It's a trade because it's collecting the issues. It's a small point, but whatever. But so many people buy these instead of the floppies because you're getting 6 issues for $12.99 at Barnes & Noble. It makes it cheaper, per issue. It's kind of a better value, but of course you have to wait for the books to come out. A lot of indie books don't sell well enough to sell the individual issues. They try to do the individual issues as a way to get people rolling, and you get that first issue and you get word of mouth, and maybe you might pick up some readers they hope for the second issue. Never really happens, but the idea is to try to get more readers as it's going through and to sell it more. And that's why you see so many at cons. People have their indie issues sitting there on their table. They're desperately trying to get them in people's hands because they hope that you'll read the first one and that'll make you want to get the rest of the series. But so many of them, it's so unprofitable to try to sell the individual issues. To sell them as a book actually sells better because they can get into places like Barnes & Noble and Books A Million and places like that. Put it on Amazon, which you can't really do with a single issue. You can try, but they don't particularly sell. So comics, I am kind of at this point where as my kids are getting older, they're not as interested in a lot of stuff. A lot of the Marvel stuff my son used to get, he just doesn't really care about enough to get much anymore. He gets a handful of books. Both my kids like Sonic. For whatever reason, the Sonic comic is something that they'll both read. But a lot of the stuff that I used to read, I just don't. I cut back on a lot of stuff because I enjoy some of the characters and I enjoy some of the stories once they're collected together. But the individual issues just don't give you enough entertainment for what you're paying for. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with piracy. When people are talking about, why do these pirates pay, it's stealing, it's theft, these people are reading for free, and they should be paying for it. And I understand that. I agree that it's not best practice. But at the same time, let's do something about the industry. There are obviously problems within the way that comics are created and shared and sold from the top down. If you're a creator and you're writing a comic, go pick up the most recent comic that you have and see how long it takes you to actually read through it. There's so much, and especially Tom King, stop doing full issues full of poetry because you just skim. I don't care enough about this poetry. And the artwork that's going along is just showing, whatever, people walking around and moping and whatever, and they're thinking about this old poem and whatever. And he's done this several times in his Batman run. And you just kind of yeah, got it. Mm-hmm, yep. Mm-hmm, yeah, I paid full price for this issue. Mm-hmm, yep. Mm-hmm, yep. And it's not even a minute to go through the book because so little actually happens. And when you get into a fight, I don't need to see a drawn-out comic book fight between two characters that Bane and Bruce Wayne are going to fight, and out of 20 pages you've got 12 or 13 that's just pictures of them throwing punches back and forth and yelling you'll never succeed, your life was wasted, you'll never take this from me, I will always fight, whatever. Goes back and forth, and it's a waste. It really is a waste. And you say, well, if you look at the story arc, if you look at the entire arc, there's a lot of exposition, and then there's some stuff, and then there's this. That used to be a single issue. I mean, that's the thing that blows the minds of my kids when I show them some of these older books. The stuff that represents a single issue would have a bizarre murder, an investigation, something happens in Bruce Wayne's private life. He finds some clues. He tracks this guy down. He's about to commit another murder. He stops him. He saves the day. It is what would be a 6-issue arc in a Tom King run in the span of 28 pages of an old comic book. It's just incredible to me how much is wasted, really, in the storytelling, because you're not you're saying, well, I'm giving you all this stuff visually by showing you the characters doing all this stuff. But so much of what you're showing me, you show me month after month after month, or in book after book after book. There has to be a shorthand to telling the story in comics. And there is. And it existed. And it was great for decades. And then nowadays, for whatever reason, they just can't do that anymore. Everything, they have to assume that everybody's a brand new reader. The thing is, if you're a brand new reader, you can still pick up on a lot of this stuff. Everybody who's a comic book fan was a brand new reader at some point, and they were able to pick it up fine. And for decades and decades, and here's the even better thing, they sold more back in that era when things were done the old school way. Okay, boomer. Back when they did it that way, they sold 500,000 copies regularly. Detective Comics at one point, the urban legend is it was on the verge of being canceled because it was only selling 350, 400,000 copies a year. And they were like, I don't know if it's really profitable for us to keep doing Detective Comics. Maybe we're going to end it. And they had these conversations. It was normal to sell 800,000 copies, 600,000 copies. And of course, yes, you had the newsstand and you had some churn happening with that kind of stuff. But look at the comics nowadays. Some of the creators that they win Eisner Awards and their books are American Library Association, whatever. And these are the ones that they're like the big, New York Times best-selling author is coming in and writing, Captain America, whatever. And some of these sell like 4,000 copies. 4,000 copies. Like that used to be the reorder number on big books. That's now like the monthly sales number. You look at companies like Boom and IDW and some of those places, 2,000 copies is like a good seller for some of those companies. 2,000 copies is like death 20 years ago of a comic book. If you were selling less than, like 20,000 copies, you were done. Like that was it. It was over. Now, if you can sell 20,000 copies in a month, they're like, wow, hey, that's a pretty good selling book. Top selling books sell about 100,000, which I guess in today's market is pretty good. But it could be so much better. They don't give people the value. Now, the DC, the 100-page giants at Walmart, those apparently sold in massive, massive numbers. They sold huge. And part of that was because it was $5 and you got 100 pages. And granted, only, 12 pages were brand new story. All the rest were reprints. But it was a much better value. From a parent's point of view, if you're buying a comic for your child and you see this at Walmart and it's this thick book and you flip through it, there's lots of stuff. $5, great. I bought a bunch of them because I liked the stories they were reprinting more than the new stuff that was coming out on the stands. And so I enjoyed going back because I sold so many comics off at one point. I lost a lot of stuff. You have kids, you make sacrifices, whatever. But for $5 to get some of those books back, to be able to reread some of them, that's cool. So that is a huge problem that they have to deal with. And until they can come up with a better value proposition, that's the way it's going to be. If DC was doing what Alterna Press does. Alterna has newsprint books with a regular comic cover. The old school way of doing it, like the 80s, 70s, 60s. They do it that style. They sell them for $1 or $1.25, maybe $1.50 if it's got some extra pages in it. And they sell okay. They don't sell, super great. I think for a lot of people, they think I'm paying less, so I'm getting less quality. And of course, it's not a DC Marvel type book. But if DC and Marvel were to do that style, if they could do that, so they could sell it for, let's say, $2. If you could go buy the latest copy of Batman for $2, it was printed on newsprint. Do you really feel like you're going to lose that much out of the deal? Like, does it really make a difference to have it on the slick, glossy paper, to have a full color laser print page? Does that really make a difference? I don't think it does. The other thing they can do is basically do what magazines do. If you've ever picked up a magazine off the newsstand, not like not like these, which are specific to a particular genre selling to comic shops. But if you go out and pick up something like Good Housekeeping or People Weekly or whatever these comics are, these magazines are. If you go and you look at those magazines, you'll see that there are usually more ads than there are magazine pages. And it's just they sell so much advertising, they put so many things in there that it offsets the cost of a lot of those magazines. There are magazines on the shelf now that are $15 because they don't have a whole lot of ads. You go and find the ones that are still, they're a little more expensive now. They're like $5.99, $4.99, whatever. They're thick. It's like a small town phone book because there's so many ads in them because they make so much money off of the ads to offset the printing price. So look, if DC Marvel, if they want to continue having these full color high quality books, they got to put more ads in it. They got to sell more ads to offset that price, to get more story pages in there, to get more of a better cost benefit ratio, whatever you want to refer to it as, or go back to the cheaper paper. If the monthly comics, DC Marvel, were coming out on newsprint, I would be fine with that. I wouldn't care. And yeah, they're going to degrade over time, and that's why ones that are well taken care of are going to be worth more to collectors. Because that's another thing. Another reason why books nowadays, they don't have a lot of values, because every unsold copy that your local comic store has, they can put in a bag and board and throw it in a box, and it's going to look just as good in 50 years as it does today. It's not degrading like the old comics. So you're not losing that story. And digital does eat some of that. The fact that it's always going to be available digital, it's not hard to find. It used to be you were trying to track down that one issue from your run so you could read it, so you could get that chapter of the story that you missed, that one issue that's missing from Legion of Superheroes from 1982. You just had to find it. With digital now, that's not really a problem. You can go online, you can buy it, you can download it, you can read it, you have it at your fingertips 24/7. So that does eat a little bit, but I think the much bigger issue is that they never degrade in quality because they're so highly printed, and they don't sell as well because they're too expensive for the stories that they have, and that just brings down the cost of everything else. So anyway, that's going to be my rant on that. I don't know if you guys have heard that, but my stomach's kind of a little unhappy with getting through my coffee this morning after what I ate yesterday. Things are starting to percolate, and going to have to take care of some business here. But I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank you for the feedback. Those of you listening just on audio through iTunes or through Podbean, I want to thank you for checking us out. Don't forget to go to thepopc.net. Check out more stuff if you want to check out the video feed. I put these videos on my personal channel and also on the Pop Culture Network channel. Of course, the Pop Culture Network channel has 10 times the amount of subscribers that I have, so of course it gets much more... it gets many more views there, whatever, and that's fine. I don't care. Wherever you're catching it, I'm just glad you're catching it, but I need to hear from you. I need feedback. Send me some more. I heard, actually, it's one of the things, I made a comment about Watchmen, and in a couple different places, people posted that they agreed, that they thought Watchmen was just, it's a terrible show. Maybe you like it. I don't know. Maybe you read the original one, the original book like years ago, and you just kind of like, well, I guess that was kind of neat. Like, it was adult. There's like bad words and stuff in it, so I guess that's cool. But you don't really understand like why it was a big deal. Or maybe you saw the movie, and you're like, okay, the movie was kind of interesting, but boy, was it way too long. Well, they even cut stuff out in order to make the movie fit. So, and there's some meta things that go in there, but there's a lot of stuff that Alan Moore, he kind of throws out there, and then like he just abandons along the way. It's a good book. I wouldn't say Watchmen is like my favorite of all time or anything like that. I don't know that I'd put Watchmen even in my top 10. I like it better than V for Vendetta, but I like the Charlton characters that book was supposed to be more than I like the characters that are in Watchmen. But regardless, let me hear your feedback. Leave a comment. And the comments, I know there's this whole thing going on with YouTube and Copa, and they changed the algorithm a couple months ago, so the more likes and the more subscriptions and the more comments that you get is supposed to help you out in the analytics of getting things in front of people on YouTube. Look, I don't care about that stuff. I want to hear from you just because I want to hear from you. So you can send me an email. Send me an email, dirt@popculturenetwork.com or dirt@thepopc.net, or come to the website and drop a comment on there, or go to the Facebook group and drop a comment. It doesn't have to be on YouTube, but I want to hear from you, because hearing from you is the thing that's going to fuel this, to keep it going, to have more things to talk about, to discuss some things. I want to do mailbag segments. I want to do enough of you guys ask me to talk about something, so I will research it and look it up and talk about it, because that to me is going to keep it interesting for me, instead of just me trying to come up with things to talk about. Here are some of the things that you want to talk about. It doesn't have to be comics. It can be video games. It can be movies. It can be toys. It can be TV shows. It can be whatever. Music. Yes, music if you want to. We can talk about, I don't know what we really, but anyway, it can be there. So if you want to like, if you want to subscribe, if you want to hit the bell, whatever. I'm not worried about that. The only thing that I'm really worried is that you only remember this one thing. You're watching the best looking guy on the internet.